Hi everyone, my name is Khali. I'm the director at Rener WellBeing. So today we're going to look at how to integrate physical activity into your busy home and work life. And so we're firstly going to go through kind of a little bit around us and kind of what we do at Rener WellBeing. Look at how physical activity not only benefits your mental health and your physical health as well as your happiness, but also how it supports you at work. And then we're going to go into coming up with a few different ways in which you can integrate physical activity into your life and help you develop your own well-being action plan around physical activity. So using my clicker. Great. So a little bit about us. So at Rener WellBeing, we support organizations of all different sizes across the globe to sustainably support employees to improve their health and happiness and also their productivity through our different well-being services. So we don't only look at physical activity, we also look at mental health, sleep and nutrition, and really believe that all four of those areas are very much interconnected. So it's quite a holistic approach. And if you think about it, if you think maybe you're a little bit stressed, it might be difficult to fall asleep. And if you're not sleeping well, you might not have the motivation to be physically active, or you might end up craving more comfort foods. No one really wants a salad when they're tired. So that's how we look at it. But today we're really focusing on physical activity. But some of the other work that we do around well-being is not only workshops and webinars like this, but also providing one-to-one support and developing workplace well-being strategies for organizations. And here are just a few at the bottom of organizations that we've worked with across the board. So WeWork, which is where we're at now, as well as looking at education companies, Loughborough University, the Aga Khan Education Services, ACS International Schools Group. And I just want to mark Priory Groups. We worked with one of their largest hospitals called Neesworth House to support them with their mental health and well-being. And it's interesting because even their staff, whose job it is to support other people with their mental health and well-being, still need help themselves. And so just to kind of mark that even those who know everything about this still need support with their well-being. And so I'm going to go next. So I also just wanted to mark that we've recently partnered with Active Partnerships around their workplace movement project. So Active Partnerships across England are funded by Sport England, the governing body, and tasked with making the nation more physically active. And the workplace movement specific project is to support organizations and workplaces to improve their employees' activity levels and reduce their sedentary behavior levels. So we're the exclusive provider, external provider across England for their physical activity in the workplace training sessions. Great. So physical activity, what is it and how can it impact your work? And I asked this question because I went into an accounting firm back in 2018. We were developing a well-being strategy for them, and the partner goes, right, this is Rener WellBeing. They're coming in, they're going to develop this strategy for us, and they're looking at these four areas, right? Physical activity being one of these areas. So we went through the day, introduced ourselves, and as we were leaving, one of the staff members, she goes, Khalil, she looks really scared. She goes, Khalil, are you going to make us have to go to the gym at lunch? And she's like, I really don't want to have to go to the gym. And also when you look at organizations starting to enable people or encourage people to be physically active, you go, oh God, my employers are going to have to make me go to the gym. So I thought I'd ask that question of what it is, because it's not only going to the gym. So this next slide here, I'm going to just give you a chance to kind of answer these. So what counts really towards physical activity and your targets there? So does any activity count towards being physically active? Is it only 80s headwear and lycra, or can you only do things in 10-minute bouts or more? And the second question around what's the recommended amount per week for UK adults? Is it 30 minutes a day? Is it some is good, more is better? or is it 150 minutes per week or 75 minutes of vigorous activity? So in answer to the first one, it is any activity, right? So, and I'll go into this a little bit further, anything from walking up the stairs, gardening, through to going to the gym, doing exercise, doing explicit sporting activities, five-a-side football, all count towards physical activity. And in the 2020 new physical activity guidelines, the chief medical officer highlighted that, yes, the recommended amounts are still 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity per week, or 75 minutes of vigorous activity a week, with 2 bouts of muscle strengthening activity. But actually also highlighted that, yes, that's the target, but some exercise, even if it's 1 or 2 minutes a day, genuinely still bring you those mental health and physical health benefits. So some is good, obviously more is better. And if you can hit 150 minutes per week of moderate to vigorous physical activity, then you're on target to hit your recommended guidelines. And that can be broken up to 30 minutes a day over 5 days a week. So some of you might be thinking, okay, right, that sounds a little bit more doable now, because taking out 150 minutes in my week to be physically active, especially if I have to go do something like running, which I hate, or having to go to the gym, which I really don't want, and especially with COVID at the moment, who knows how long and how regularly those are going to be open. And I know some of my clients are finding it hard because they're having to book in slots and it's difficult to stick to, and everybody wants the same slots. So how can we be physically active? And before I go into the types and kind of how to start looking at that, I think it's important for us to look at what the benefits are. Again, some of these aren't going to be new to you, and especially any of you that have children at the moment, they'll be learning about this at school. So yeah, it's not rocket science, but you're going to have more energy. You're going to be have better stress management. You're going to be in an improved mood. It's going to help things like anxiety, stress, your sleep, type 2 diabetes, chronic heart disease, etc. And these are all from Greater Sport, who are Greater Manchester's Active Partnership and their Active Workplace Toolkit. But yeah, so those kind of on the bottom left, those physical health and kind of mental health benefits aren't probably that new to you. However, also if you look up to the top, being more physically active really has a lot of work benefits too. So if you're an employer and you're looking at supporting your staff around being more physically active, for every £1 invested, Greater Sport found that up to £34 return on investment, so 34-to-1 ROI on physical activity initiatives, based off of things like a reduction in absence rate. So those who are physically active are 27% less likely to take sick days off. There's lower presenteeism, and I'm sure other speakers throughout the conference have spoken about presenteeism, but essentially when you're coming to work and not being fully productive, you're not fully present, you're not kind of on your A game. Also, it's going to help improve teamwork, team unity, and prevent isolation, which at the moment a lot of individuals are finding difficult because they're having to work from home, and especially those that are young. So those are there. And also, if you think back to yourself, think back to those days, even if it was 5-10 years ago when the stars aligned and you went on that run, how did you feel afterwards? Maybe you were tired, maybe you were exhausted, but even if it was on the weekend, how did you approach your hobby or just even watching TV that afternoon? Were you in a better mood? Did you do things in a more productive way? Did you feel less foggy? And I think the majority of us can agree that actually we usually do feel more energetic. We do feel a little bit more turned on to work and switched on to work. So if we go to the next slide, just connecting to my clicker, here's kind of our internal strategy, which has just been published last week actually by UK Active, but it was also featured at Mad World Summit, which is one of the UK and Europe's biggest kind of mental health and well-being conferences, as well as being published by Greater Sport in their Active Workplace Toolkit, where we developed a well-being strategy to look at how to support Shift8, so a dementia technology organization in London, around their employee well-being. And not only did they end up being happier and healthier by improving their physical activity levels and the other areas of well-being that I mentioned at the start, but it also did all the things that I mentioned before: improved productivity, reduced absence rates, reduced turnover. But what was most shocking and kind of quite surprising, and what's led this to be quite a best practice case study, is that their performance, especially the quantitatively measurable performance indicators like in-year sales, doubled in just 3 months. And their CEO kind of attributed it to the well-being and strategy there. So this is just kind of another example of the proof at which being more physically active and improving your well-being overall can genuinely have those health, happiness benefits as well as those work benefits. So next slide. So how do we improve physical activity and reduce your levels of sedentary behavior? And just for those who aren't aware of what sedentary behavior is, it's any time that you're sitting or lying when you're not sleeping. So again, a lot of us are doing that, especially in office jobs, for many hours a day. There's no guidelines on that yet, although we do know that we're trying to get people to take 1 to 2 minute breaks every 30 minutes if possible, especially if you're sitting, just because your metabolic rate reduces. You start kind of going into stopping to burn that fat when you're resting. And so ideally you want to be kind of moving and taking breaks as, every half hour. But to improve physical activity, as I mentioned, right, you don't just have to go running. It's not just going to the gym and doing high intensity workouts. It's really important for you to find something that you enjoy. So don't run if you don't like running, right? Oh God, I'm going to have to go be physically active. It's January and I know I've got to do something, so I'm going to go for a run, but I hate it. And we often fall into these traps. You don't have to go running if you don't enjoy running. A lot of these calls, we're having so many Zoom calls and not all of them are having to be camera on. So can you take a next call and walk along the beach if you're in Jersey and in the Channel Islands? Can you walk in the woods? Can you just take it quickly around your garden? Because as we saw, just by doing a little bit of movement and activity can really help improve your physical health, your mental health, and contribute to your work. Joe Wicks is one example of virtual home workouts, but also there are so many different types and ways in which you can be physically active at home. Apps like Peloton, Headspace are doing things for physical activity. There are so many free ones on YouTube. Gyms are coming out with their own home workouts around Pilates, yoga, high intensity workouts, if that's what you're into and what you enjoy, but also workouts for beginners. And we ran quite a few home workouts virtually for beginners ourselves and had loads of people attending, which was fantastic when lockdown just happened. Dancing, Bollywood classes, you name it. So it's just important to kind of find something that you do enjoy, which is relatively easy to integrate into your life. Just taking the stairs instead of taking a lift. I don't know how many of you are living in apartments at the moment, but if you can take the stairs, fantastic. But worst comes to worst, just 5-star jumps, 10-star jumps as you're making tea. And if you're an employer or you're working in a team, can you set up a team challenge? It can be walking, and there are a lot of apps that can help bring walking step challenges together. You could try and walk from, I don't know, Jersey to your office in London, or you could try and do a walk up Mount Everest as a whole team in November, for example. And so there's so many ways in which you can be physically active. But again, everybody has different barriers to physical activity: time, motivation, experience, injuries. Everybody has different enablers. So reasons for why they want to be physically active. It could be an aesthetic thing, wanting to look better, wanting to feel fitter, wanting to be more healthy because you enjoy it. And so what I'm going to do now is on the next slide is support you to try and think and make up a physical activity action plan for yourselves based on these 4 kind of points. So if you want to take a pen and paper and go on your laptop, on your iPad, whatever you use, a productivity tool, to fill out kind of what your barriers are to physical activity. So again, as I mentioned, that could be time. You could go, Khalil, I just don't have the time to do any of this. I don't feel like I have the time. or I really just don't like the idea of being physically active. It could be, and some of my clients have often kind of start by going, oh, Khalil, I know this barrier sounds a bit silly, but, and again, cut that, I know it sounds a bit silly, but really, whatever's stopping you is important to look at. Things like, just by having to take my gym kit to work, to the office, or having to change just stops me from wanting to be physically active. Great, write that down. For me, my barriers were the fact that I had a really good gym routine during lockdown, before lockdown, and then lockdown happened and the gyms were closed, and I had to adapt and try and find ways to be physically active. In that sense, and I was playing five-a-side football, and that stopped. So again, it was quite difficult for me to kind of do the same things that I wanted, but I had to find kind of other alternatives. Then looking at your enablers. So what enables you to be physically active? Again, it could be that it was sunny that one day that you were physically active and that's what got you outside, that it was warm enough, that you had a Zoom call that was cancelled, so finally you had an hour out free in your day. It could be that you finally healed from an injury and so you wanted to start being physically active again. Like I mentioned, aesthetics. Oh, it's summer's gone now, but you just want to look good, feel good, especially because of COVID. Any little helps. So whatever is helping you to be physically active, it's worth putting that down. And then I want you to come up with 1 or 2 action points only around physical activity. And when we work with people, we really don't want them to make these big all or nothing action points, right? So I think especially with things like New Year's resolutions, for example, we go, you know what, this is the year I'm going to be physically active and I'm going to do a 5K every single day and I know I can do it this year. And a 5-kilometer run every day is very ambitious, especially if you're going from 0 to doing 5 kilometers a day. So what we want to encourage you to do is come up with these 2-degree changes, that over time make those really big differences to your health, mentally and physically, also to your happiness and to your work. And so could it be, I just want to try and walk for 30 minutes once a week. And so it's important to come up with something measurable and specific that you can stick to, but also being aware that, yes, if by the end of the week you didn't get it, you didn't hit your 30-minute walk that week, it's important not to then go, oh no, now I have to make up for it next week and do 2 walks, and there's life in the way, I'll get to it next month. It's okay if you don't manage to hit those this month. Start again, but again, it doesn't have to be on Monday. You can just start. Today is a Tuesday for me while I'm recording this. Start on Tuesday if that's when you feel like doing it, and just crack on and be kind to yourself. So what could action points be? Again, like I said, just doing star jumps. It could be trying to find that home workout that you wanted to do, doing it with a friend, and trying to do it once or twice a week. But for me, the most important piece for this is understanding how these changes that you're making, these action points around being more physically active, are going to benefit your life. Kind of your why. Because it's all good going, yes, I know it's good for my health, and I've heard that it's important to be physically active, and now I know that it's good for my work, so fine, I'll try and do it. But if you don't really have that intrinsic or that internal reason for doing it, it's going to be easy to just fall by the wayside. So it could be very similar to your enabler of going, I want to, the motivation of looking good or being healthy or being more productive is how these changes are going to benefit my life. But they could also be different. But just try and find those. So what I want you to do now, before you go to your next call or by the end of the day, is to fill out these 4 areas and come up with those. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to get in touch. My information is here. So yeah, have a look at our website, renerwellbeing.com. Email me directly, and if you want, even give me a call on my mobile. I hope that's been helpful, and good luck with being more physically active.